After 5 long years, Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse is finally here, and even with all the hype surrounding it, the movie completely blew away pretty much everyone's expectations. While this movie has a bunch of familiar Spider-Men from across both old and new universes making appearances within the story, I think pretty much a majority of us watching had absolutely no idea who the Spot was or what he could do going into this movie. Today, I'm going to do my best to explain this Spiderverse version of the Spot, his abilities, and how powerful he is, or powerful he might be, going into the third Spiderverse film. Before we go any further, please know that this video will contain spoilers for both the entirety of both Into and Across the Spiderverse, so you have been warned. The Spot's backstory is explained incredibly briefly in the movie, but we pretty much learn every single detail of his motivation and how he became the way he is. I'm not sure if his original name is actually ever spoken out loud, but in the comics, the Spot's real name is Dr. Jonathan Owen. In this universe, he worked alongside Dr. Olivia Octavia in creating the dimensional super collider that set the events of the movie into motion. He also mentions that when testing the machine, he brought the spider that bit Miles in from a different universe. Likewise, it was Miles' involvement with the destruction of the super collider that caused the Spot to gain his powers. Later on, this connection between the two of them becomes even more literal, but I'll mention that once we discuss the Spot's actual powers and what he can actually do with them. While it's a bit of comic book logic, the collider seemed to turn Jonathan into a living portal, permanently changing his appearance and, by his own determination, ruining his life. From here, he determines that he must be Miles' nemesis and destroy him by any means necessary in order to inflict the same pain that Miles had inflicted on him. This leads to the entire universe-hopping conflict of the movie, but that's not the point of this video. So, what can the Spot actually do with his portals, and how strong is he? At the start of the film, he seems to barely be able to control his portals, and even seems capable of running out of spots entirely, needing to create a small version of the collider to generate more spots for himself. In fact, every time he uses the collider on himself, he gets drastically more powerful. In his first fight with Miles, while being capable of trading blows with him, he does ultimately lose, and his use of portals is pretty uncontrolled. Even by the second time, though, he seems to have complete freedom to create portals wherever he sees fit. Furthermore, these portals seem capable of fully moving from place to place, completely swiping 3 Spider-Men out of the air simultaneously faster than any of them could dodge or react to it. The portals also seem to vary in their properties between instances, probably as the Spot sees fit. Sometimes the portals are like the ones from Portal 2, with there being no distance between the spaces within the portals. Other times they're a lot more like a tunnel, having space to build up momentum to go through. Also, after his first fight with Miles, the Spot learns that the portals are not limited to his own dimension, and that these portals can bring him anywhere in the multiverse. While it's not exactly explained, it also appears that his portals give the Spot knowledge of the multiverse, as he was specifically going to dimensions that had alchemists' labs in them. By the time the Spot absorbs the power of the full collider, his previous limitations seem to vanish completely, but his entire body becomes one big Spot. Unfortunately, we don't exactly see what he's capable of fully, as at this point he essentially dips from the movie completely. However, we do get hints about his new abilities, as Miles and the Spot both seem to share a moment of future sight into the fate of Miles' father. This can mean that the Spot's awareness has extended to not just being aware of the multiverse, but also further events and timelines within the given universes as well. But we shall see. Understanding timelines is actually consistent with the early explanations for how the multiverse functions within the Spider-Verse movies. Okay, but with all these abilities, how strong is the Spot actually? Firstly, for his physical abilities, even aside from his hacks, he's portrayed as being the physical equal of pretty much every Spider-Person he fights, both in speed and strength, being able to trade blows with, grapple, and even react to their attacks with his own. But how strong is that? The problem is that there is a multitude of ways to scale the Spider-Man from across this multiverse. Firstly, we can go off what we actually see in the movie itself. This would put them at least building levels of strength, as the Spider-Man from Miles' original universe was capable of casually stopping this massive spinning reactor with one arm. Speed is more iffy. With the most gracious speed feat we could give, some of the Spider-Men were able to react to Miles' burst of electricity, which is at least hypersonic. The other method is scaling the Spot above Spider-Man incarnations who appear in Spider-Verse. This makes building levels of strength a lot more consistent, or above, and makes electricity dodging feat more consistent with how many versions of Spider-Man have battled Electro and have dodged his electricity. It's a bit weird using comic Spider-Man as canon, as while versions that have appeared in comics do show up in the movie in droves. Some universes are changed, like 1610, which is nothing at all like comic 1610, so it's a bit harder to justify. But these basic stats are pretty much made entirely irrelevant by the natural physiology of the Spot once he absorbs the power of the collider. In the first Spider-Verse film post-credit scene, it's explained by Lila, the AI that Spider-Man 2099 has, that the multiverse would have collapsed if the malfunctioning reactor was not stopped. This would have done by bringing together every universe and crashing them together and forming a multiversal black hole that would rupture the space-time continuum, as explained by Octavia. We initially thought that this would be contained to the only universes that the Collider actually interacted with, but Lila essentially confirms that it was actually all of it, or at least most of the multiverse was at risk here. The terrifying thing about the Spot is that he absorbed that same amount of power, but unlike the reactor, he actually has control of it this time. This multiversal power becomes even more impressive when it's explained that at least some dimensions within the Spider-Verse are actually infinite in size, as the dimension that the Vulture was tapping into is called infinite by the narration itself. While we are never told the exact size of the multiverse in Spider-Verse, it's implied by the lecturer in the first film that the multiverse model potentially used in Spider-Verse is the infinite choices based model, that each action makes a new dimension in which a different action was taken onto infinity. This might explain why the Spot could see the future, as he could see every choice that makes a new timeline, as he was already aware of the nature of the universal web. If this is true, then the Spot wields power to make infinite multiverse, potentially of infinite-sized universes, completely collapse. This would easily make him one of the most powerful villains we've ever seen on a movie screen, comic or not. And most likely, the Spot solos your favorite verse. Honestly, I have no idea how they're going to beat him in the next movie. Hey, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I might not have gotten everything 100% right, as this was just based off of my first viewing of the movie, but I hope you enjoyed, and if you like this kind of stuff, please don't be afraid to like and subscribe. If you disagree with my takes, let me know how I'm wrong in the comments down below. See ya!